Welcome to this video where I'll show you how to learn the basics of Japanese with the resources you can find on the internet. So basically this video is made so that you can watch the videos on my channel where we translate real Japanese stuff, but you can just watch it to, well, learn Japanese basics. So first thing, sorry to say it, but you will need to learn the Kana, which are the two syllabaries of Japanese. Even if you just want to learn how to converse, for example, believe me that at some point you will need them. So in the Kana, you have Hiragana and Katakana, which are different syllabaries. Hiragana are used for Japanese words and Katakana for foreign words, because you have tons of foreign words in Japanese like racket, party, hamburger, pasta, schedule, etc., etc. So you have 46 hiragana and 46 katakana. So it's not so much, but be careful because you can modify and combine them. For example, the su hiragana, if you add the little two strokes on the top of it, it becomes zu. So the two strokes are called tenten. Then the hu hiragana, this time you can add kind of a circle which is called maru and it becomes pu. So you will have to learn how to modify them with tenten and maru. Then you can combine them. So for example, hi plus a little yo, you see that the yo is little compared to the hi, it becomes hyo. But don't worry because it makes sense. It makes sense, so it's not so hard to learn. For katakana though, be careful because you have lots more way of combining them. Because since katakana are made to transcribe foreign words, well, in Japanese you see that you don't have so many sounds. You have very few consonants and very few vowels. So the vowels won't change. Anyway, it won't change. You can't add a new vowel. You just have a, I, U, E, O sounds and, well, deal with it. But for the consonant, they kind of cheated with katakana to add some new consonants, some new combination. So, for example, the T sound does not exist in Japanese. Like, originally, it doesn't exist. But they kind of imported it because, well, they needed it, for example, for the word party. And you have also va, vi, vu, ve, vo, fa, fi, fu, fe, fo, etc., etc., that you will never find in a Japanese word, but that can sometimes be used to transcribe a foreign word. For example, fairy tale. So, fe, fairy, tale. And so it means that when you will learn katakana, you will have to learn much more combinations. But once again, don't worry because it makes sense. So to take a closer look at it, here is, for example, a hiragana chart. And you see that, as I told you, it's a syllabary, which means that in our languages we use letters. So consonants are separated from vowels and you combine consonant with vowels. But in Japanese, it doesn't work like this. You only have syllable. So you notice that a consonant is never used alone. A consonant alone doesn't exist in Japanese. And so when, for example, you have the ki sound, don't think that it's K plus I. It's just ki. And if you don't understand this, you won't be able to, for example, conjugate verbs in Japanese. So really understand that it works with syllables, and the only consonant that is used alone is the n sound, but it doesn't combine with vowels either. It is used completely alone, like for example in the word Nihon, so Japan, and you see that it ends with a n sound, Nihon, and you can't combine it with another vowel to make the na sound. For example, you see that the nani, nu, ne, no sounds exist by themselves. You also notice that you have some let's say weird things for us Occidentals. It's that the T sound becomes chi and tsu and not ti and tu. So as I said, the T sound doesn't exist in Japanese. And for a Japanese person, T plus I would become chi. So don't think that it's an exception, it's just how Japanese works. And once again, you will need this to conjugate verbs. So you see that it works with columns and with lines. So the lines are the vowels, the columns are the consonants. And so the T column, the T consonant becomes ta, chi, tsu, te, to, and that's it. And don't think more about it. Don't think too much. That's it. For the pronunciation, I will add a link where you have everything, but honestly, it's not so complicated. You have few things that might be a little bit tricky, like the F sound, for example, is not an actual F sound. It's not fu, it's hu. It's like a bit like an H sound. But whatever. You, in my opinion, by watching a lot of anime, by listening to a lot of Japanese, it will come naturally. So don't be too much nitpicky about it. It will just come by listening to Japanese. So first, why do you need kana? Well, because of something called furigana. So I guess that many of you know the kanjis, which are very different from kana because they're not simple letters, but they represent a concept or a thing. And they are, well, big. They're not just letters. They're like a drawing. So you have lots of strokes in every kanji. And it takes a lot of time to learn them. But if you read manga, for example, you will have a thing called furigana. As you can see, the kanji's pronunciation is displayed above the kanjis, which means that if you know the kana, you can read many contents, even if you don't know the kanjis. So this is, well, in my channel, this is the main reason why you have to learn the kana, because you will unlock so many contents. So now, how do we do to learn them? So first, don't worry, because if you study, it will take like 1 month, 1 or 2 months to learn them. You just have to work regularly, and honestly, it's not so hard. Kanjis take time, but kana are kind of fine. So first, what you can do to find the charts, you can go to the Tofugu website where you have tons of charts. So here they are. So they added tons of them. I would recommend this one because you have the modifications and the combinations included in it. So on the top, you have the 46 basic hiragana, and on the bottom, you have all the combinations you can do and the modifications with tenten and maru. Then you have these kinds of charts, which are pretty good because it teaches you how to write the kana. You have the order of strokes and the direction. So be careful, because if you want to write them, you have to learn the strokes. I won't even explain why, because it's kind of obvious, but just learn the strokes. Don't think that you're going to write them like randomly, because it's not going to work and you will regret it so much. So even if it's a bit annoying, a bit boring, do it. Learn how to write them. But for people who don't want to learn how to write them, then just learn to recognize them, and well, it will be enough, depending on what you want to do, what kind of Japanese you want to learn. Then if we go on, you see that we have this kind of charts, which are made out of little drawings which represent, things. For example, you have the cucumber here, and in Japanese it's called kyuri. And this cucumber is then used to represent the Q sound. You have a ki, hiragana, and a little u, which make Q, so kyuri. So this might be good if you want to learn hiragana while learning some basic Japanese words, and if you like, when you have drawings, because it's pretty good to remember things. But then for people who kind of struggle with, learning by heart, like writing and reading the kana until you remember them, you have a great YouTube channel and application, which is called Dr. Moku, and he uses the mnemotics techniques. So I will show you how it works.
This is the symbol for she. Think of a girl with long, shiny hair. She has shiny hair. This is ku. Think of a cuckoo bird. Cuckoo, cuckoo.
So you might think it's childish, but actually it works. Like, it's designed to work. So you will remember the kana much easier if you watch these videos. So if you're completely fine with the traditional ways, of course you don't have to watch it. But if you like this way of teaching, this way of remembering things, then go for it, because it's really well made. So you have this video on YouTube where you will find all the hiragana, and of course you have the same for katakana. And then, you have to exercise to remember them. So you have, of course, many different methods to do it. First, the flashcards. And know that you have tons of applications that you will find on your phone to learn the hiragana and katakana with flashcards, and you will find them. But you also have Quizlet. That is pretty good, because this is how it works. You see that people are making their own list of flashcards. And so you can search and find the list that you want to find. For example, here I search hiragana. Then you see it's, flashcards, so you can use them to learn. I've put a link in the description for a good list for hiragana and a good list for katakana. But once again, look for the one that fits the best for you. Then you have something called Hiragana Megane, and this is going to save so many people, and not only for learning kana. So here is how it works. So for example, you have a Wikipedia page about Shingeki no Kyojin, whatever, and you can't read anything, right? So what do? You open Hiragana Megane, you copy paste the link, you press OK. It kind of takes time, but just wait. And wow, it's magic. Look at this. You have all the furigana. So Hiragana Megane is a website that will add the furigana to any website. So whenever you want to go to a Japanese website and you want the furigana because you can't read the kanjis, use Hiragana Megane and it will work. So it's a fantastic tool. Use it. And right away, even if you still don't know how to speak Japanese, you can use it to train. So, for example, you take a Wikipedia page in Japanese, you add the furigana, and you try to read, and you will see that in no time you will remember the kana. Then another thing is the website Animelon, so you will like it a lot too, I think. So you have many different animes uploaded on the website, and you have subtitles, like real-time subtitles in well, everything that you want in English, in Romaji. So Romaji are our letters, so the transcription into our letters. And you have, of course, the, well, real Japanese with kanjis, etc. But you also have the transcription in katakana and hiragana. And so you can watch anime while trying to read the kana, and it might be a good training. So it's, for example, when you already know them, but you want to get faster at reading them, so you can try this and it works pretty good. And then finally, karaoke. So try to find some on-vocal or off-vocal Japanese karaoke. And as you can see, you just have to read the kana and sing. So this is pretty good to get faster too, because of course you have, well, to be fast to read them and to sing at the same time. So it's pretty good. Of course, at first you can slow down the speed, so well, the music will be horrible, but whatever. But then you're going to tell me, okay, but this is good to learn hiragana because hiragana are for Japanese words. So indeed, you have much more hiragana than katakana, because of course you have more Japanese words than foreign words. But I have the perfect opening so that you can train your katakana. If I lose it all, sleep and fall, I will never look away. Yeah, this is English transcribed into Japanese. This is actually what's written on the screen in katakana. And so, not only will you learn katakana, but you will also learn how to transcribe some English into Japanese. So actually, it's super useful. So yes, the Shingeki no Kyojin opening is perfect because it is in English. It's 100% in English, so you can train with it. So of course, all the links that I show you here will be in the description, so you can use them. So with all of this, basically you should be completely fine with hiragana and katakana. So before starting, know that in Japanese you have no plural, no gender, no conjugation based on the subject. What I mean is that, for example, for to be in English, you have I am, you are, she is, so the verb changes. In Japanese, it doesn't exist. You also don't need to add s, for example, like we do in English. He does, he speaks, he waits. At the end of verbs, all of this doesn't exist. The conjugation is always the same, whatever the subject is. And the reason is, you will understand why. It's that actually, in Japanese, most of the sentences don't even have a subject. You will see that in Japanese, we don't really use subjects. So this is why, of course, conjugations are not going to be based on subjects. And then you have no articles, so no a cat, the cat. No, it's just cat and you're fine. So it's really easy at first because actually, you don't have to learn much things to start being able to make some sentences. So enjoy this part of Japanese because you will see that, of course, like every language, Japanese has its tricky parts. So enjoy the easy parts. Okay, so now let's take a look at, well, grammar, just how to speak Japanese. So it will be short because I'm just showing you all the videos that you should watch in order to learn whatever you need to learn. So I say in order, but since these are videos from very different channels, it might happen that you bump into something that you've not studied yet, and on the opposite, that you bump into things that you've already seen like once or twice. It's completely possible, but in the whole picture, if you watch every video, then you should be completely fine. Maybe some things will not be explained enough, won't be clear enough. In this case, just type whatever you want on Google or look for some other YouTube videos and complete the whole thing. You will find tons of videos, once again, tons of websites explaining Japanese grammar, but really it should be complete. So as I told in my first video, the first video of the channel, these videos are to learn, well, first, the basic particles, all the basic particles that you will need to say simple sentences. But if you master them, honestly, with some vocabulary, of course, you need words, you can already converse. Of course, you will lack many things, but you can do many sentences with just these particles. Then, of course, the basic sentence patterns. So no complicated sentence here, just simple sentence. Then some basic conjugations, of course. And finally, imasu, arimasu, two verbs that are very important. And kore, sore, are, kono, sono, ano, koko, soko, asoko, etc. You will see why it's important. So here, the first two links are for the very basic sentence pattern that you have in Japanese, which is X, wa, y, des. You will see that you can do many things with this pattern, and then how to form questions. Then two videos about kono and kore that are very useful since it's des, or that. And finally, basic conjugation. So for des, that is not a verb per se. So this is a thing that looks like a verb that you use for the very basic sentence pattern. And you have also the mas conjugation. So mas is used with verbs. So basically, you have two different conjugations to learn. The first one, which is for des ending sentences, and the one that is to conjugate verbs, actual verbs, and both are in polite form, because you will see that what's tricky in Japanese is that you have many differences between when you speak politely and when you speak casually. So for the moment, don't think too much about it. We'll see it in our videos on this channel. We will study both polite speech and casual speech. And you will see that in Japanese, conjugations are super easy, so don't worry. So here you have the conjugation. So in the videos, you will learn how to do them, but here you have it too. And just to add some things that might not be explained enough in the videos. So first, in Japanese, to make a negative sentence, you have to conjugate the verb. It's not like in our languages where you have to add, for example, not, or where you have to add an auxiliary like don't. You have to conjugate the verb and then your sentence becomes a negative sentence. Be careful too about this negative form because you have many different ways to conjugate it. You have dewa arimasen, which becomes ja arimasen because dewa becomes ja when it's oral, and it also becomes janai desu in let's say semi-polite speech. Well, whatever, just know that you have many different forms. Then the mas conjugation. So here what's important to know is that you see that I've written non-past. I didn't write present. So know that the basic tense that you will learn at the beginning is both simple present and future. You don't have any future in Japanese. This tense covers both simple present and future. Then next, some links to learn iru and aru, so the two very important verbs. You really have to understand how they work because you will encounter them all the time. They are used so much. And by the way, this second video here, watch it after watching the videos about particles because you will need it. Then the videos about particles. So this is the most important thing and the trickiest thing, the hardest thing. So watch every video. You have videos that explain everything, and some videos where you have some exercises where you have to guess what particle you should use, so you can train a bit little. And the last video is for the no particle, because I thought that maybe it was not so much explained in the other videos, and it's a very important particle. Finally, 3 bonus videos to study more thoroughly some things that are very important. And here I added 2, let's say, helps for the last video, because in the last video she explains nothing, and you might be confused because she uses 2 no particles. So it's completely possible. You can have 2, 3, even 4 no particles. It's completely possible. So for the moment you don't understand what I'm saying, but after watching the videos you will understand. And so here is a little help so that you can understand how it works. So when you watch this last video, you can go back to this video or take a screenshot or whatever to help understand how it works. And by the way, in the videos that I propose you here, you will have a few videos from a channel called Japanese Amo with Misa. And honestly, this is the best channel on YouTube to learn Japanese. She is so good at explaining, and she's a native Japanese. So I recommend this channel so much. So of course, every channel that are used here are very, very good channels, so don't hesitate to watch some other videos. Not now if you want to watch my videos, because of course everything that is not listed here, we're going to learn them in my videos. But if you watch the videos on my channels, for example, in the first video we learn to omu. If you want some more explanation about Tomo, you can go back to these channels and find some videos that will explain Tomo. What I want to say is that my channel, of course, is made so that if you only watch it, you can learn everything that you need. But honestly, when you learn something, I think it's better to watch many different contents, because you have different ways of explaining things, because explaining something just once most often is not enough so that you really understand how it works. And well, you have tons of reasons why you should kind of mix all the contents that you can find on the internet. And this is one of the goal of this channel. It's also to show you many different resources that are so useful, so that you have many tools to learn Japanese and that you feel kind of comfortable. You see, you know that if you want to understand something, you know how to understand it, you know where to go. And then finally here you have the basic conjugations, and as I told you, for the moment just learn the polite conjugations, but here I added the casual conjugation, so you don't need to learn them for the moment, but if you're curious, if you're interested, of course you can learn it. And now let's get to the exercise part. So before even starting the exercises, you should know all these rules after watching the videos. So the SOV pattern, which means that you have first the subject, then the object, then the verb. The verb is always at the end of sentences. Then no subject or theme needed in, it's a random number actually, but in 75% of sentences. So when you translate in English, you have to add a pronoun that fits the context. Then 2 other things that maybe are not so much explained in videos is that the particles that you've learned, you will only find them after nouns. You can't put them after anything else. So if you try to speak Japanese and that you put, for example, a ni particle after an adjective or a verb, you know that you are making a mistake. So you will see later that it's a bit more complicated. You have some kind of exceptions, but it's not exception. It's just that actually it's not the same particle, or it's a completely different use. But for the moment, just remember that all the particles that you know are after nouns and only nouns. Then second thing, you have two kinds of particles. Particles that link nouns together, so it's to, no, and ya that maybe you didn't learn, but whatever. And the particles that indicate a role. So let's say the grammatical function of the word in the sentence, but be careful because as you see, I underlined wa and mo because actually they're kind of different, but we'll see that later. Actually, they don't indicate a grammatical function, but whatever. And so, what does this mean? It means that when you use to or no, you are building a noun phrase or a noun group. But if you use the other particles, then on the opposite, it indicates the end of a noun phrase. And when you're starting Japanese, of course, you're not used to this particle system. So knowing this rule is quite useful to understand how it works, how Japanese sentences are built. And so the first exercise we're going to do, I'm here showing you a sentence and you will have to place brackets. So brackets might be your best friends at the beginning because, as I told you, your brain needs to get used to this particle system. But this particle system is very useful because it indicates everything. You don't even have to think. The particles indicate where you have noun phrases, where they end, what is their role in the sentence. So it's very useful. But when you have a long sentence, since you're starting Japanese, you might get a bit confused. If I tell you, translate this sentence right away, you might be a little bit confused. It might be complicated. So add brackets, and if you add brackets, it will become clear. You will see it will be very easy to translate it. So how do you add brackets? Well, you have to add a bracket when a noun phrase begins and to add the other bracket when the noun phrase is over. And to know how to recognize noun phrase, well, you have to look at the particles. So first, spot particles. Then add brackets according to the type of particle. So what does it mean? It means that if you have the to that means end or the no particle, then you don't add a bracket because your noun phrase is not over. To and no indicate that the noun phrase is not over because it links nouns together. But if you have wa, mo, ga, ni, de, kara, ma, de, the to that means with or o, then you add the bracket because your noun phrase is over, since this particle indicate the role of the noun phrase. So it means that the noun phrase is over. So first, add the brackets and then try to translate the sentence. So here it is. So you have watashi wa, first noun phrase. Then sha no, okay, it links nouns together, so we are not ending the group phrase here, but after you have de, so you have your noun phrase. Then sha no naka de. Tomodachi to, so that might be tricky because you have two to. So it could be a to that means end and then that links nouns together, but it can also be the opposite. So you will know which to it is based on the context. Here it would be very weird to connect tomodachi and furansu no gaku because it would mean my friend and the French music. That would be a bit weird to link both together. So it's a to that means with. And then, furansu no ongaku o. And of course, you also have the role of all these non-phrases. So wa indicates the theme, so concerning whom. Here, concerning me. Then densha no naka de is the place of action, so where does it happen? To, when it means with, indicates the accompaniment, so with whom. And finally the object, so you say your verb, the verb of the sentence, so to hear, because kiku means to hear what, and you have your object. And so the whole sentence means, yesterday I listened to French music with my friends in the train. And of course, after kino, you don't have particles because know that it's a bit tricky. We'll see that later. But basically, after this kind of time expressions like today, yesterday, tomorrow, etc., you don't add the ni particle because you could say it's a point in time, so I will add ni. No, it's a mistake. You can possibly add wa because you can add wa everywhere. It's wa's main feature. You can place it almost wherever you want, but you can't have ni. So after this type of words, you might not have particles. It's normal. By the way, you also notice that basically in Japanese, you're supposed to have a particle after every noun. So kino here is kind of considered as an adverb. This is why you don't have a particle. But basically in Japanese, you have a particle after every noun. So when you're speaking, of course, it's just like, languages. For example, you don't say I am going to, you say I'm gonna. So when you're speaking Japanese, most often you can drop particles. But of course, you have to know what particles to drop. Because if you drop a particle that is actually important, that should not be deleted, then the other person won't even understand what you want to say. So for the moment, what I recommend you to do is not to try to speak like the characters in anime or etc. Add particles all the time to get used to it, to understand how they work, to avoid making mistakes. And then when you will be used to it, you can start dropping them just like they do in oral speech. But for the moment, do not do it. And so you see that brackets at the beginning can be lifesaver. So use them whenever you have a sentence that is a bit long. It works. Then next exercise. So this is the exercise that is at the beginning of the first video of the channel to check if you've got the basic knowledge to watch my videos. So you have many different sentences and you just have to understand what they mean. So I let you do it. By the way, you can use a dictionary because you might not have enough vocabulary to understand them. So use a dictionary, you can. Press pause, and when you're ready, play the video again and I show you the answer. So here is the answer. And so if you struggled to translate all of this, then you're not ready because they are very simple sentences and very textbook-like sentences. And then finally you have a last exercise, and this one is kind of a sneaky one. So you have many different sentences in Japanese, and you will notice that in every sentence you have teburu no ue. What changes is that the particle after teburu no ue is different, and of course it will change everything. So this is an exercise to check if you actually understand how particles work. So in this exercise, do not use a dictionary because if you do, the exercise becomes useless. So you will have to guess the underlined words, and you have to guess them. Well, with the particles, actually the particles are going to give you huge hints about what the word can possibly be. And if you can't guess, then just leave a blank, okay? So you start translating the sentence in English and you leave a blank where the word should be. You also have one sentence in English that you have to translate because the other way wouldn't be funny. So once again, press pause and then I show you the answers. So here is the answer. And if ever you are very confused by this exercise, then it means that you're not ready, that you didn't understand the particles and how they work. So I recommend that you try to train more about it. So be very careful because, of course, every noun phrase, like every noun phrase in the world, can have all the particles of the word. You can use it the way you want in a sentence. So, teiburu no e can be an object, it can be a theme, it can be a place, it can be everything. So, teiburu no e ni neko ga imasu and neko wa teiburu no e ni imasu are two sentences that, if you don't get it, it's not very important. It's the difference between wa and ga, but we'll see together. It's not so important, or don't worry. The important part is teiburu no e wa kitanai desu. It's to understand that since you have a wa, you can't translate as on the table because it becomes the theme. So concerning, for example, the top of the table, and since it's a wa desu sentence, teiburu no e wa is what you're talking about, and kitanai desu is some information about teiburu no e. This is the wa desu structure. You indicate something that you want to talk about, and then you give some information about it. So the top of the table is dirty. Then teiburu no e o katazukemasu. It's an object. So when you translate in English, if you start with the top of the table, it's over. You're done. You won't be able to translate the sentence, and you should not do this because the object in English is always after the verb, never before. So you have to start with the verb. And since we're in Japanese, you don't have any subject, so you have to add one, like randomly. So here, let's have I. So you start with the verb, I will clean, and I will clean what? This is the object, teiburu no e, so the top of the table. And so when you don't know katazukemasu, you leave a blank. I will do something, the top of the table. And with the blank, maybe you understand that it's to clean. Could be many other things, but whatever. The important thing is that you added the object after the verb. If you did that, then you're fine. And finally, teiburu no e kara ochita. So this time it's kara, so from the top of the table. The next example was just for the no particle, so that you be careful about it, because of course teiburu no e and ue no teiburu are both possible. So the table on the top or above is expensive, so I don't know, either you're looking at a picture where you have many different tables, or I don't know, but anyway, it is completely possible. So beware of the no particle. You have to be careful not translating it too fast. And finally, the cat sleeps on the table. So it's the same as there is a cat on the table, but the difference is that to sleep is considered as an action. So ni is used when you just want to locate something. Okay, the only thing you're interested in is knowing where something or someone is. So when you say there is a cat on the table, the only thing you're saying is that the cat is located on the table. So It is the ni particle. But when you say nemas, what you want to say is not that the cat is on the table. What you want to say is that he, does the action of sleeping on the table. So it becomes de, the place of action. Okay, and the video is over. If you're fine with the 3 exercises, then you can watch the videos of this channel without worrying. You will be completely fine. So thank you for watching.